Right now, we have three amazing lawyers who we all know are defenders of democracy, and to navigate that conversation is the one and only Dr. James Peterson.
We have an incredible panel. I'm just going to bring them up here right now. First, we have attorney Michael Coard coming up here first. Give it up for Michael Coard, criminal defense attorney, and also host of Radio Courtroom on WURD. Next up, we have the head of the Civil Rights Unit at Marone Law, attorney Keir Bradford-Grey is in the building. And last but certainly not least, we have distinguished professor in Africana Studies, Sociology, Bioethics, and Law at the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Dorothy Roberts is in the building. They were not lying about the brightness of these lights. I am honored to moderate this conversation, and we're going to start right at the heart of the matter. I would love for each of the panelists to give us a sense from where you sit in the world as a professor, as a lawyer, as a civil rights lawyer, as a criminal defense lawyer, on what is the state of our democracy right now. And you know, I think there are a lot of folks in this audience who pay attention to the media, to the news, to politics. You all know the WURD audience. It's an engaged audience. And so just give us a sense of what's the state of this fragile democracy here in the United States. And maybe we'll start with Dr. Roberts and work our way back. Did you guys came in with a different order? Yeah. Dr. Roberts, please.
As we've already been talking about this evening, we have a president and federal government that are directly and explicitly assaulting freedom of speech and other civil rights. A big part of that strategy is to divide the nation racially. In fact, one of the aspects of the executive order to the Smithsonian Institution, which is supposed to erase all of Black history to make the U.S. look better, was the idea that we are divided innately into separate racial groups, and that, although that order didn't say it, it's very clear in the assault on DEI, the idea that Black people are innately less intelligent, less competent, and the reason why DEI needs to end is because it's put incompetent people into various positions.
That's saying a lot coming from this administration.
Yes, yes. Now, did you want me to talk about immigration now, or
We'll circle back to that, Dr.
circle
Roberts.
back? Okay, I'll get to that later. So those are just some of the ways in which our democracy is literally under attack right now, and a chief strategy to attacking it is anti-Black racism, explicitly.
Thank you, Doc.
So I think, and first of all, I totally agree with everything she said. But where I see democracy, you know, you could predict what someone like who we have in the White House was going to do. Actually, he wrote a whole manifesto, or had a whole manifesto written about what he was going to do. But where I did not understand is what we were going to see was the capitulation that has gone on by major institutions. Big law firms have decided to stay silent and not fight against the federal government's erasure of rights. And so what I'm afraid of is that this is going to become normalized. We're going to start seeing normalcy in censorship and anti-Blackness and anything that you can't say the word Black. All of those things, we're going to start saying, we can't do that. And the fear and the capitulation that we've seen happen with major, I would say, agitators to this is going to seep into us and allow us to let this happen over and over again.
And just add universities also. That's it. Add universities to law firms, yeah.
People seem to think that democracy is getting worse in America, the concept of democracy. What they fail to realize is that it's not getting worse, it's getting more visible. We can see what it really is. America reminds me of what appears to be a beautiful kitchen from a distance. And as you walk closer to that kitchen, it still looks good. You get even closer to the kitchen, it looks great. But then you turn the lights on, and the roaches come out, and the rats come out. That's America up close with the light on. What the guy in the White House has done is to turn the light on the kitchen of America. America right now is where Germany was shortly before Hitler. America right now is where Italy was shortly before Mussolini. And America right now is where Spain was before Francisco Franco. And if you think that that's hyperbole, look at Spain before Franco. Look at Italy before Mussolini. Look at Germany before Hitler. We're on the path. But thanks to these four geniuses up here, we have the solution to the problem of America.
Okay. We're definitely going to get to some solutions. Dr. Roberts, the U.S. government is shut down right now, and the shutdown is allegedly over access to affordable health care. I know you've done a lot of work and a lot of writing around bioethics and race in healthcare. Talk to our audience a little bit about the stakes for Black people. When you hear about a government shutdown, you hear people debating about Medicaid or Medicare. Talk about what the stakes are for access to healthcare for the Black community.
Well, Black people in America already lower access to health care, and we live in conditions that are harmful to our health. So just as an example, Black women are far more likely than white women in America to die from pregnancy-related causes or maternal mortality. That's just one example. I could go down the list of all the health conditions and diseases where Black people are at higher rates of dying. And unlike what the president said, it's not because there's something innately wrong with Black people. It's because there's something wrong with this nation and the way in which it structurally treats Black people. So we have the most at risk when we have a government that's slashing research funding, especially research funding looking at the causes of and solutions to health inequities. And so that's just one piece of it. The other piece is, the structural reasons why our health is at risk, but also just getting access to healthcare itself. We are more reliant on Medicaid than other groups. And so when the solution to the debt in America is not to cut the military budget or to cut the ballroom in the White House or whatever else, this White House wants to spend money on, and is expanding military invasions into cities, which is extremely expensive as well. No, the solution is to cut Medicaid, to cut Medicare, to cut food stamps. And so Black people are at the highest risk of the devastating impact of that.
Keir, talk a little bit about our civil rights status right now. I mean, people are concerned military coming into cities. There are all these different executive orders that appear in the net result to be anti-Black. As Dr. Roberts is talking about, they're talking about Medicaid and Medicare, and it seems like these things up here, but when you look closely at the data, those things have a disparate impact on our community. As a civil rights sort of scholar and specialist, what's the strategy? What's our game plan to protect our civil rights in the onslaught of fascism?
So I like to say that I agree with Michael Coard that we have always been in a state of dishonoring civil rights. I've seen more civil rights dishonored than honored. But at this point in time, I think we're starting to wake up and say, wait a minute, that's a civil right that someone just impinged upon, and what do we do about it? Well, let me tell you, right now, law firms who have the ability to fight back have been silenced. So what you have is individual lawyers who are standing up and trying to make sure that people understand the actions that are actually civil rights and the law that protects them. That is hard to do without an army and without a media presence such as WURD, because we cannot educate people about what it is and what it feels like to have all of your civil rights degraded and done. We haven't felt yet having all of them in application to our lives. But now we're losing what little bit of ground that we had. And so in that respect, I say this: we've got to do a lot more about understanding how to work with community and legal as tools in our toolbox to make sure that we're pushing and advancing to say we're not going to lose what we've already gained, but we still want more. And right now, Black people are feeling the brunt of it because we are at the heart of whatever it is that this white nationalist agenda is putting down. Project 2025 wasn't just a project, it was a manifesto of how to create the white nationalist importance and inheritance of this country. That's what that is. And they used courts, they used the Department of Justice, they use all levers of government to make it happen, and then couch it under a narrative that is for our financial health. So I would say, like people, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Don't fall for that, because quite frankly, there's a lot more that's coming, and we're going to be crippled because we're not going to be able to fight back because he has taken away the balance and the independence of the courts.
Michael, speaking of losing ground, talk to our audience a little bit about Avenging the Ancestors Coalition and what's at stake in terms of the archival materials at the initial president's house here in Philadelphia.
I'm going to try to answer that in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to speed through it. So people often accuse me. I'm glad to hear that, but you shouldn't have said that. People often accuse me of speaking too fast. I accuse them of listening too slow. So as long as you speed up your listening, we'll get this in. It goes like this. Back in 2002, 23 years ago, a group of angry Black folks began fighting the good fight. We found out, one, that the Liberty Bell Center was moving from 5th and Market to 6th and Market. Why? Because it was too cramped, too crowded, too congested there. It went to 6th and Market. Big deal. We find out 6th and Market back in 1790 was America's first White House. It was known as the President's House, Executive Mansion, Robert Morris Mansion, but it served as America's first White House. Okay, interesting, but no big deal. All in 2002. But the third thing we found out is that George Washington, the president of this country, enslaved 9 Black men, women, and children at America's first White House right here in Philadelphia from 1790 to 1797. So Black folks found out about this in 2002. We organized, we protested, we demonstrated, we agitated, we did everything that needed to be done for 8 straight years. We then get to December 15, 2010. The grand opening of the first, I repeat, the first slavery memorial of its kind on federal property in the history of the United States of America. That was a great victory until it wasn't. And it wasn't 15 years later. In January of 2025, the guy in the White House issued dozens of executive orders. I don't need to go through them all. Suffice it to say, it was anti-Blackness. Fast forward to March of 2025, where the president said, hey, there are federal sites around the country that, quote, inappropriately disparage, unquote, Americans past and present. This is March of 2025. Fast forward to May of 2025, the guy he appointed in the Interior Department, a guy named Doug Burgum, targeted Philadelphia, targeted 6th and Market, targeted the Slavery Memorial, and threatened that on September 17, they could shut it down. Well, September 17 came and went, and it didn't get shut down. Why? Because of WURD and the Philadelphia Tribune agitating. And based on all that, we fought the good fight. Now we have a 3-pronged strategy. We have an activist strategy, we have a political strategy, and we have a legal strategy. I got 2 more hours of information to share with you, but we don't have the time, so I'll stop right there.
Thank you. I want to go another round robin. Thank you for that, Attorney Coard. I want to do another round robin here. What's the status of our judicial system and the court system right now? There are a couple of things I would like each of you to reflect on. There are some people who believe that the courts can protect this democracy or insulate it from the onslaught of fascism. I don't know if I'm one of those people or not. But there's also a critical state-level Supreme Court election coming up right here November 4th. Talk to us a little bit about the courts and where we are at the federal level, but also, most importantly, where we're headed with the state-level Supreme Court here on November 4th. We can start with you, Dr. Roberts.
Well, as you probably all know, the Supreme Court has been taken over by conservative justices who seem to be at the beck and call of the president. So they have mostly ruled in the president's favor, in fact, granting immunity even for criminal acts while he's president. And there have been some exceptions, but to me, the most important thing coming out of the Supreme Court now are the dissents of Justice Jackson and Sotomayor and Kagan, but especially Ketanji Brown Jackson and Justice Sotomayor. Thank goodness for their dissents. They've been very outspoken. That means that state courts are more important than ever before. And
Please say that again. Please say
yes,
that again.
state courts are more important than ever before. State Supreme Courts, like the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, have much more likely given opinions and decisions that are in favor of civil rights, that are against gerrymandering, they're in favor of voters' rights, that are in favor of reproductive justice. I've named issues that the Democratic-led state Supreme Court, 5 of the justices on the Supreme Court are Democrats, and that's a majority. And they have, if you look at the record, over and over again, issued decisions that are more in favor of civil rights than the U.S. Supreme Court has. That's why the vote is so important, because justices on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court serve for 10 years, and then they have to be retained by a vote. That's the vote that's coming up. And the conservative right-wing, Trump-supporting machine wants to remove 3 of the Democratic justices. And so you're getting a lot of misleading messages that say, if you want democracy, vote no, not to retain them.
They have an ad
right?
called Defenders of Democracy.
Yes, and there's also lies that are going out that the Supreme Court voted against democracy in elections, that it voted in favor of gerrymandering. Not true. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court in 2011 issued a decision against Republican gerrymandering. So pay attention to this vote, because it's very important to keep the justices as they are right now on the court, and not to open up the chance for them to be taken over and the court to move to the right.
Thank you, Doc. Attorney Bradford-Grey, same question to you, but can you also help us understand what it means for us to have the Attorney General that we have right now during this time, please?
Oh boy, don't get me started on the Attorney General. But let me just say also, because we are seeing the dismantling of organizations and agencies that are supposed to protect your civil rights, because a lot of these civil rights complaints, especially Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, better known as EEOC, they are being defunded. Those are the ones that make sure that employers are not discriminating against people when they fire them. Well, there's 300,000 plus black women being fired. You mean to tell me there's not some kind of discrimination into those decisions? It is not trying to make sure that we have more money in the federal government. But one of the things that we have to understand is all the levels of government that are supposed to protect us. And the Attorney General is one of them. Many people think the Attorney General is some super district attorney, right? They do the criminal stuff on the state level. No, they advance our rights against anyone who is trying to discriminate against them or violate our civil rights. That is a particular role of that office. And we see people like Letitia James, Keith Ellison, standing up and fighting back on the president when he does things that says, I'm not giving you money for Medicaid. I'm not giving you money for certain things. That's illegal because Congress has already allocated that. But he has weakened Congress so they can go back and redo what they've done. However, it is up to a legal entity, And the only legal entity we have right now, other than lawyers who bring lawsuits in courts, is the Attorney General's office. They are supposed to stop what's happening. And we have got to be more vigilant. We've got to be more vocal and demanding more action from that Attorney General's office when the federal government does things to impinge upon our state constitutional rights. So that's what
Same question to you, my courts.
You know, when it comes to the courts, I have to preface it by saying this. I am not a lawyer who happens to be a black man. I'm a black man who just happens to be a lawyer. And there's a big difference there, because for me, the law is not the be-all and end-all. Slavery was legal. Apartheid was legal. Women not being able to vote was legal. So for me, it doesn't begin and end with the law. And I also say this, I don't go to court to get justice, because there's very little justice there. I go to court to expose the injustice. And by exposing the injustice, maybe you can get the masses to move. Now, my final 30 seconds or 60 seconds, what I'm about to say is this. I want to be careful because I don't want to get disbarred. And there's certain things that lawyers cannot say. So I'm not going to say them. I'm not going to cross the line, but I'm going to go up to the line. The first thing is this, and this is good. The 3 Democrats running for retention on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, vote for them. You gotta vote for them. And I'm talking to my revolutionary comrades who think that the politics is BS. You are BS if you don't get those 3 Democrats in. And I'm not a fan of Democrats. But during wartime, you pick up whatever weapon is available. I wish we could reanimate Assata Shakur and make her president. We can't do that. So the next best thing we can do is to make sure those 3 Democrats seeking retention in the Supreme Court, my revolutionary comrades, you really failed me with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, but I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm just saying you messed up there, do the right thing now. Final thing I'll say is this, and I know our moderators got the timer, in 30 seconds.
I have no idea where we are with time. If somebody wants to get flagged me, give me a 10-minute sign, let me know.
It's incumbent upon black lawyers to do the right thing. The great Charles Hamilton Houston, the brains behind the civil rights litigation. We give Thurgood Marshall credit, and he deserves it, but the brains behind that was Charles Hamilton Houston. And he said this, a black lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. We got too many parasites. We need some engineers. I don't think I get disbarred for that. Will.
No, I think you're good. You're good. I think you're good. I think you're good. I think you're good. No one's going to report you to the bar here. Again, I wasn't joking about not knowing where we are with time, so I'm going to just keep going until somebody pulls the hook. I want to talk a little bit about solutions and how we operationalize some of the things that we've been talking about. I mean, this, again, our audience is an audience that's engaged. We activate around a lot of different things, but people are hungry for strategy, hungry for ideas about not just how you join an organization or support an organization, but how do individuals, right, activate in this particular moment. I don't know who wants to go first on that piece. Yeah,
I'm going to say this, again, for the Attorney General's office who has a responsibility to us. Document your experience and flood that office with all of your documentation about every right that's been violated by anyone in either government or even private sector that has employees of 15 or more, because that's where the Attorney General comes in. If you are a private employer, you have 15 employees or more, the Attorney General has jurisdiction over this. So if your employer is saying, you know what, I'm gonna fire you, and you feel like that's racist, but you just don't know what to do about it, document that experience. Because at the end of the day, when we start to look at certain things coming out against one particular person, where there's smoke, there's fire. And when there's a lot of smoke, then someone's gonna have to act. They can't ignore that. But we don't document enough of our experiences to do that. I'm gonna take Michael Coard, put 30 more seconds, and it turned it into 90.
Take it. But
what I wanna say is this. A lot of things are happening at the school level. I'm getting a lot of calls about discrimination at the school level, discrimination in disproportionate discipline methods, kids being kicked out for very small things, interrupting their learning. That is not acceptable and it's not normalized. But the Department of Education has been defunded so much that nobody can really get to them to protect them. So who has to do it? Individual lawyers. Well, that's not the case. Our tax dollars go to a state agency that is supposed to make sure educational practices are not discriminatory. But parents are not doing enough to document these things. And we have to work together. Yeah, there's got to be some skin in the game on both sides. If lawyers are going to go to court, we need the evidence to bring into court. And the evidence are not just your testimony, but the evidence is also your stories, your letters, your documentation.
Thank you, Attorney Bradford-Grey. Dr. Roberts?
Well, let me make a comment about an overall strategy, which is to understand that our rights are all linked. And we should be concerned and fighting for the rights of everybody. And I just want to give an example, because you had asked me to talk about immigration at one point. So I want to use an example. I don't know if you all read or heard in the news about what happened in Chicago on Tuesday in the middle of the night when armed ICE agents and other federal agents stormed a building on the south side of Chicago occupied mostly by Black people. They broke down doors, they dragged people out of their beds, they rounded them up, men, women, little kids, some of them naked, outside, strapped their arms together. What was that called? Zip-tied, thank you. Zip-tied their arms and detained them. These were U.S. citizens, but they were Black. And I have been saying over and over again, it doesn't matter anymore if you're a U.S. citizen. First of all, Trump wants to get rid of birthright citizenship, which was passed by the 14th Amendment as a measure to end slavery and make Black people citizens of the United States. This is all connected. And so he also, you remember when he said immigrants are coming to take Black jobs? Do you remember that, to try to pit us against immigrants? Or what are those jobs he had in mind? Okay, so my point is that the strategy of fascism and dictators is to split people apart, to drive wedges between movements, to make white people think they have an investment in whiteness and they should be anti-Black, to make Black people think we're citizens, most of us, although, by the way, Black people are disproportionate. 20% of non-citizen immigrants who are deported on criminal charges are Black. We're only 7% of non-citizen immigrants. So this is targeting of Black people. And if somebody can come and break down your apartment door armed and drag you out without due process and detain you, if they deport you and you have no hearing to prove you're a citizen, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen or not. My overall point is we have to see our movements as connected to each other and resist the splitting one against the other, all of this in the support of white billionaires who want to take over this nation. And so think about whatever it is you want to be aligned with. Find an organization that is working on it and work in solidarity. I think somebody said today that unity is the answer. And that's just my overall message for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Yes.
I have two answers as to what we can do. The first answer might not be too legal, so I'm not going to say it publicly. Just catch me outside and I'll tell you what I'm really thinking. But I can't say it here, and I'm serious about that. A wise man once said, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. So I'm not saying. The second thing, what's going on in America now seems so overwhelming that we don't know what to do. But Gil Scott-Heron had a response. He said, just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. So now we can fight the good fight. And Dr. Peterson started maybe 10 minutes ago by asking me about ATTAC, ATAC, Avenging the Ancestors Coalition. That's the grassroots blue-collar organization of angry black people that came together and fought the federal government and got that slavery more at 6th and Market. Now we're back again to saving. We encourage people to join our army. We have an activist front, we have a political front, and we have a legal front. And a shameless plug right here, our next meeting of ATTAC is Monday, October 6th, 6:30, Zion Baptist Church, Broad in Venango. This Monday, October 6th, 6:30, Zion Baptist Church, Broad in Venango, and I'll tell you what I'm really thinking there.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but from Attorney Bradford-Grey, we have documentation documenting your challenges. From Dr. Roberts, we have solidarity and thinking about unity across our populations. And from the brother Michael Coard, we got ATTAC. Okay, ATTAC. Okay, give it up for Attorney Michael Coard, Attorney Keir Bradford-Grey, and Dr. Dorothy Roberts, the Defenders of Democracy panel.